Welcome back to another Unreal Engine 4 tutorial, and in today's video we will create random loot chests which will drop goods, and the chests will get destroyed like you see right now, and we will use a default inbuilt plugin called Apex Destruction. I've already pre-done some of the things to make life a little bit easier and quicker. So first and foremost, in the inventory structures type now we have a new variable. What I've added is a variable called rarity, and this is an integer. So this is going to allow me to determine the possible rates of spawning these items in these loot chests. There are many different ways how you could achieve the rarity logic. It involves a lot of math. So I'm going to show you a single way how I did it, but know that there is many other ways how to do this. So now that means that in our items database we have this value rarity, and I've set mine to be like scale should be from 0, the range should be from 0 to 100, and basically the higher the number the rarer the item is. So in this case, if we have a medical box, there is like a 50-50 chance it's gonna spawn. But if we look at the battle axe, well, it's at 80, so it means it has around 20% chance to be spawned. You can do this the other way around as well. Well, like I said, there are many ways how you can do this. Also, what I've done is I've set some items to have rarity 0, so that means that it's impossible to get those from these chests as long as the number stays at 0. Now, to achieve the visual effect that I showed at the beginning, what you need to do is go to your plugins and you need to enable the destruction, Apex Destruction. Make sure you enable this, and then it's going to ask you to restart your project. I've already done that. Now, this means that we can enable us to destroy the meshes. So right click your mesh and create a destructible mesh, and over here what you can do to have a look is perhaps fracture the mesh. So here you can look how it's gonna look like when it gets destroyed. And also what I want to do is enable the impact damage, so that well, for this case, once it spawns it gets destroyed when something hits it. And I also will need an interface function, so I'm going to go to the line trace interface and I'm going to add a new function and call this self destroy. We don't need any inputs on this, so it is good as it is. And now we can create the actual chest. So new blueprint class, I'm going to look for the static mesh actor, and I'm going to call this BP loot. Let's open this up, and first let's replicate the actor itself. Let's select our base component, make sure that that is replicated component as well. Also, let's add a inventory variable, which is the s slots RI, and make sure we replicate that as well. Then we can add class settings, interfaces, and add our AI interaction and our outline interface, and compile and save that. And also I want to set a mesh as well, so we have our crate. And now in our construction script we can get the data table row names to get all the items from the database. Let's select our database, and now we can loop through the whole database, loop for each. And now let's get the rarity value, so we need to get the data table row, connect that, select the database manually once more, then we can break our S inventory structure, and from this one what we want to do is check if the rarity is not equal to 0, because if it is we don't want to spawn this item. And also from the rarity we want to check if this is smaller. And for this B route, what we want to do is simply do a random integer, and the maximum value is going to be 100. Let's plug that in, and then from both of these we can do a AND boolean check, and let's bring that to an if to see if both of those are true. Now at this point this maximum value is 100, so this means I can spawn any item that has a rarity value in the database. But if I would set this to, let's say, 50, I can only spawn items that has rarity value 50 or lower. And if it's true at the end, what we simply want to do is drag in our inventory, and we want to add a entry for this one, and we want to make the slot structure, and we also want to make the data table row handle. Let's select the data table manually, and row name comes from the for loop. Now for the amount, make sure to type in 1, so you spawn 1 item, and that's going to be my whole logic for deciding what items to spawn. Now we can go to our event graph, and over here we're going to run a few events. So the first one is going to be the event start interaction, And on this one, what we want to do is get our inventory, and then we want to run a loop for each, and actually we want to do a reverse, so reverse for each loop. And then from this one, as the player, we simply want to run the server spawn item function. And for the item, we can plug in the RI element. Now for the location, what I want to do is first I want to get the actor's location. So where are we located? And then I want to do a vector plus vector node, because I want to add some random values so that the items wouldn't spawn all in the same space, because that might cause a small physics explosion. Items would be flying everywhere. So for the z-axis, I'm going to set it to 100 to be a little bit above the chest. Then for the x, I'm going to do a random float in range. For the range, I'm going to choose 0 till 100, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing for the Y route. Then this can go in the location. Now once we are done with this, we can drag in our inventory again, and we can remove index. And the index we can get from the loop. Now that's it for start interaction. Now let's run our event self destroy. And from this one, we want to drag in our static mesh component, and we want to set the visibility of this one to be false. So the new visibility is false, it's invisible. And also we want to set response to all channels, and we want to simply ignore all of the channels. Then we want to add a destructible component. And now if we select this node, we can change its parameters. So we want to set our wooden crate, and we also want to simulate physics so that it would fall on the ground. And for the transform, what we want to do is simply get the actor, let's get actor transform, and let's plug that into the transform. Also make sure to select this node and replicate the component as well. That is very important, to have the visual effect replicate across the network. And also check the manual attachment to be true. And once we are done with that, we can do a small delay to let this play out a bit. So I'm going to make this 2 seconds, and then we can simply destroy the actor. And then we can open up our BP chest to copy the outline event. So copy that one in so that we would draw an outline as well. And I'm gonna give this actor a tag, and let's give this a tag of loot, and let's go to our third-person character. And over here, let's see. So I'm in my nonstop trace. So what I want to do is copy this has tag and type in loot. And for the chest and loot, I actually want to do a or boolean check, because it doesn't really matter which one of these it is, as long as it's the same chest or the same principle. I do want to have the text open chest, and I want to draw an outline around it. So that's that for this function. And now in our event graph on keyboard key E, we also want to add a loot, but this one is going to be a little bit more complex. So let's set the tag to be loot. Then we want to do a if branch check, because we want to run 2 custom events. So let's run the first one. So custom event, and let's call this server spawn loot. And for this one, we need 2 entries. So we need the target, which is going to be an actor, and then also we want to pass along the player, so the third-person character. And this event needs to be ran on server. And from this one, then we can start the interaction, connect the player, and then we want to have another custom event, which is going to be the multi spawn loot. And this one needs to be a multicast event, and this is going to be a little bit different. What we want to do is have a single entry on this, and this is going to be the target. So we need to set this to be an actor type. So from this one, I want to do a is valid check first to make sure everything is still okay, and then I want to run the self destroy message using the same target. And then from the server spawn loot, we can run our multi spawn loot, connecting the target to the target, so the bottom target. And you might already notice a pattern. So basically, if we run something on server, we usually want to just simply change some values or spawn something new. And for the multicast, well, that's usually when we want to change something about the appearance of the specific mesh. So now let's go to our keyboard E event so we can actually launch this, and from the true route, if it has a tag loot, we can run our server spawn loot. Let's connect the bottom target to be our hit actor, and the player is going to be a reference to ourselves. So now that we have a couple of chests in the world, let's give it a go, and you can see these chests are getting destroyed. So that's going to be it for today's video. Nice and simple, looking very nice. And in the next 24 hours I will update the Patreon links for the project files, so you will be able to download this exact same project if you support me on Patreon with $10 or more. And yeah, hope you guys learned something new, and I see you in the next episode.